Most people hate the sound of a leaky faucet. I, on the other hand, am a connoisseur of the drip. Not the annoying plonk, plonk, plonk in a silent kitchen at 3 a.m. No, I'm talking about the sound of purpose. The sound of rain. I'm Dave, and I work from home as a graphic designer, which is a polite way of saying I stare at a glowing rectangle in my pajamas, while my dog, General So, judges me from his beanbag chair. My home office is my sanctuary. It's a small second-floor room that looks out over the side yard. And in that side yard is my muse, my white whale, my gutter downspout. On rainy days, that simple aluminum tube becomes a musical instrument. The water gathers, trickles, and then plip, plip, plops onto the little concrete splash block below. It's nature's metronome. It's my focus sound. It's the ambient noise track I'd pay $9.99 for. Or, at least, it was. You see, I live in Hydrangea Hills, a suburban development so perfectly manicured it looks like a 1950s sitcom set that got left in the sun too long. Every lawn is an identical shade of enthusiastic green. Every mailbox is the same shade of judgmental beige. Our neighborhood is governed by a homeowners association, HOA, that possesses the bureaucratic efficiency of the DMV and the moral judgment of a 17th century Puritan tribunal. And the grand inquisitor of this beige-colored tyranny is a woman I've come to know as the Clipboard. I don't know her real name. I'm pretty sure she has one, but it's irrelevant. She is a woman in her late 50s, perpetually clad in a visor, sensible New Balance sneakers, and a polo shirt the color of a faded legal pad. And she has never, not once, in the 3 years I've lived here, been seen without her namesake. A brown faux leather clipboard, which she wields like a broadsword of petty grievances. My first run-in with the clipboard set the tone for our entire relationship. It was 6 months ago. A Tuesday. Recycling day. I heard the tap, tap, tap on my front door. It's a sound that's far too polite to be friendly. I opened it, and she was just there, vibrating with purpose. "Excuse me," she said without preamble. "Are you David?" "Dave, just Dave." She made a small tisk sound, as if my preference for a nickname was a personal affront. "David. I am Brenda, the acting chair of the Architectural and Community Standards Committee." "Brenda. Okay. How's the committeeing?" She did not smile. I don't think her face is wired for it. "I am here regarding a direct violation of the community guidelines." She gestured with her pen, a pen attached to the clipboard by a little plastic coil, naturally, toward my driveway. I looked. My recycling bin was there. General Tso was sniffing it. "My bin?" I asked. "Your bin," she confirmed, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, as if we were discussing high treason. "It is 4 inches past the designated curb line." I waited. There was no punchline. "I'm sorry?" "This isn't a matter of apologies, David. It's a matter of order. Section 4, Subarticle B of the Community Guidelines, which you agreed to when you purchased this property, clearly states that all receptacles must be flush with the curb line, but not impeding the sidewalk. Your receptacle is impeding." "Impeding what? A very tiny car?" "It's an eyesore," she hissed. "And it's confusing the recycling truck driver." Confusing him? Does he think it's a new bright blue shrubbery? Is he trying to water it? "I am documenting this," she said, her pen scratching furiously on a sheet of paper. "Consider this your first and only written warning. If it happens again, There will be a fine." She turned, her New Balance sneakers pivoting on the pavement with military precision, and power walked away. I just stood there, holding the door, watching her go. "Well," I said to my dog, "I guess we're criminals now, buddy. Aggravated bin placement." General Tso just sneezed on my leg. That was the baseline. That was the level of granular, joy-sucking pedantry I was dealing with. She had since documented me for my garden hose being visibly coiled in a non-uniform manner. A single, unremedied dandelion in my front yard. My welcome mat, which apparently was excessively whimsical. It said, "Whalecome." I learned to live with her. I'd see her on her patrols, clipboard at the ready, and I'd just duck behind the curtains. She was a fact of life, like taxes or mosquitoes. Until the day she came for my gutter. It was a beautiful, sunny Saturday. The kind of day that's so perfect it feels like a personal gift from the universe. I was on my small back patio, enjoying a cup of coffee, listening to the birds, and generally feeling at peace with the world. The air was still. The sky was a deep, cloudless blue. And then I heard it. The sound of doom. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. The sound of sensible shoes on my driveway. I froze. General Tso let out a low growl. He knew the sound, too. It was the clipboard. She never knocked on the back door. This was an escalation. I walked to the side gate, and there she was. Her visor was pulled low, casting her face in a grim shadow. She was holding the clipboard to her chest like a shield. "David?" she said. Her voice was flat, cold. "Karen?" I replied, just to see what would happen. Her eyes narrowed. "My name is Brenda." "My mistake, Brenda. What's up?" "I just want you to know the recycling bin is perfectly flush. I used a laser level this time." "This is not a joking matter," she said, stepping past me into my backyard. Into my backyard. Uninvited. This was a new level of bold. She was on my turf. "Whoa, hey," I said, putting my coffee down. "Can I help you?" "I have a serious complaint," she announced, marching directly to the side of my house and stopping right under my office window. She pointed up. I followed her finger. She was pointing at the downspout. "My gutter?" I asked, genuinely baffled. "What about it? Is it not beige enough for you?" "It's loud," she said. I just stared at her. My brain tried to process the word. Loud. The gutter. It was a beautiful, sunny day. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. The gutter was, by all accounts, completely silent. "It's loud," I repeated slowly. "Right now?" "No, not right now," she snapped, as if I was the stupidest man on earth. "When it rains." She said rains like it was a vulgar word. "You're complaining about the sound my gutter makes when it's raining." "It's not a sound, David. It's a nuisance." She was in full-on bureaucratic speak mode now. "It's a percussive, invasive, and aggressive drip. Drip. Drip." She actually acted out the drip with her little pen. It's water," I said, feeling like I was in a surrealist play. "Falling from the sky. Gravity pulls it down the tube. It's physics. I can't really stop physics." "Your other gutters do not make this noise," she countered, pointing to the one on the front of the house. "Only this one. It's aimed directly at my house. I hear it through my bedroom window. It's maddening." "It's aimed at the ground, Brenda. It's a gutter." "It's stressing me," she said, her voice rising. "It's stressing my hydrangeas. They haven't bloomed properly on that side of the house for 2 years, and I'm convinced it's this constant plonking. She was blaming my gutter for her gardening failures. This was next level. "I've documented it," she said, and with a flourish, she unclipped a piece of paper from her board and thrust it at me. It wasn't just a piece of paper, it was laminated. She had typed up, printed out, and laminated a formal notice of acoustic nuisance. I read it. My hands were shaking, half from anger, half from the sheer, unadulterated comedy of the situation. Formal notice of acoustic nuisance. To David, my last name. From the Hydrangea Hills Architectural and Community Standards Committee. Violation. Section 9, Subarticle C. Community Nuisances. Description. The downspout located on the western-facing wall of your property, Lot 14B, produces an excessive and percussive drip sound during periods of precipitation. This sound constitutes an acoustic nuisance to adjacent properties. Lot 13B. Remedy. You must rectify the situation immediately. Rectify, I read aloud. That's a strong word. What exactly does rectify mean in this context? Do you want me to ask the clouds to rain softer? Maybe I can fill the gutter with cotton balls. That is your problem, not mine, she said, her lips a thin white line. You will rectify it. You have 14 days, or I am escalating this to the full HOA board, and we will begin fining you for non-compliance. She didn't wait for a response. She just turned, click-clacked across my patio, and let herself out the side gate. I stood there for a long time, holding the laminated letter. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and I had just been served by the water police. I looked up at the gutter, the simple, silent, aluminum gutter. Well, I said to General Tso, who had trotted over, I guess we're at war. He licked the laminated notice. His review was as good as any. The next 3 days were a fog. I couldn't work. I couldn't focus. All I could think about was the word rectify. It was bouncing around my skull like a rogue pinball. How do you rectify the sound of rain? My first instinct, of course, was to be a reasonable adult. I went to the hardware store. I bought a small, decorative rain chain to replace the downspout. It was a series of little copper cups. The idea was that the water would trickle down it silently. It was twee. It was something Brenda would love. I held it in my hands, and I felt sick. This wasn't a solution. This was capitulation. This was letting the clipboard win. She complains about a drip, and I immediately replace my perfectly functional gutter with a $40 piece of lawn jewelry? No. No. I returned the rain chain. The guy at the customer service desk looked at me weird. You okay, man? You look a little intense. I'm just passionate about drainage, I muttered, and fled. I went home and fell into a Google K-hole. How to silence a gutter. Quiet downspout solutions. Noisy gutter fix. The internet offered 2 solutions. Install a foam insert. Boring. And it would probably clog with leaves. Adjust the angle of the elbow. This would involve math and effort. But here's the thing. The more I thought about it, the less I wanted to make it quieter. The complaint was so absurd, so utterly ridiculous, that a simple, quiet solution felt like a betrayal. It felt like I was admitting she was right, that my rain was, in fact, aggressive. This wasn't a problem to be solved. This was an opportunity. This was a moment gifted to me by the universe for malicious compliance. The phrase echoed in my head. Malicious compliance. The art of following an order to the letter in such a way that it produces a result the order giver absolutely did not want. She wanted me to rectify the sound. She found the drip-drip to be a percussive nuisance. My mission was clear. I had to change the sound. I had to rectify it. I stewed for another 24 hours. I was pacing my office, staring at the offending gutter. What kind of sound? A worse sound. A more percussive sound. A less natural sound. The eureka moment didn't come from a place of genius. It came from a place of profound laziness. I was on my couch, half asleep, watching daytime television. My dog was snoring. My brain was tapioca. An old episode of The Price is Right came on. It was time for Plinko. The contestant, a woman named Cheryl, who was way too excited about a new set of patio furniture, dropped her first chip. It hit the pegs. Plink, 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 clack, plunk. The sound cut through my brain fog like a laser. I sat bolt upright. My coffee, which had been balanced on my chest, went flying. General So leaped up, barking in confusion. I didn't care. Plink, plink, clack, plunk. Cheryl won $10,000. But I had won everything. I scrambled for my laptop. My fingers were flying. I wasn't Googling quiet gutter anymore. I was Googling large acrylic tubing. Stainless steel dowels. Bulk marbles. A vision was forming in my head. A glorious, beautiful, monumentally stupid vision. She wants percussive? She thinks a little drip-drip is a nuisance? Oh, honey, you haven't heard anything yet. I grabbed my design tablet. I am, after all, a designer. This was a design problem, a problem of acoustic experience. I sketched it out. Item 1. Remove the cheap aluminum downspout entirely. Item 2. Replace it with a 20-foot tall, 2-foot wide clear acrylic tube, transparent, so she could see the magic. Item 3. Inside this tube, a maze of staggered pegs, hundreds of them, stainless steel for tone. Item 4. At the very top, connected to the gutter opening, a hopper. Item 5. And in that hopper, marbles. Not just a few. Hundreds. Big ones. Boulders, the bulk toy website called them. When it rained, the water wouldn't just drip. The flow would slowly fill a small reservoir in the hopper. When it hit a certain weight, a tiny solar-powered catch would release, dropping a handful of marbles into the Plinko machine. It would be a cascade. A glorious, chaotic, clattering symphony of glass on steel. It would be a 20-foot-tall, wall-mounted carnival game, powered by Mother Nature and my own spite. Plink, clack, plunk, bd-d-d-d-d, clack, plunk. It was perfect. It was the most beautiful, terrible idea I had ever had. Now, for the genius part. The compliance. I pulled up the 80-page PDF of the Hydrangea Hills HOA bylaws. I'd read them before, but now I was reading them like a lawyer. I was looking for the loophole, and I found it. Section 9, Architectural Standards. Article D, Downspouts and Drainage. All water drainage systems, gutters, downspouts, drains, must be fully functional and maintained in good working repair. They must safely divert water away from the home's foundation. All modifications must be in keeping with the community aesthetic. That was it. That was all it said. Fully functional, divert water. Check. My Plinko machine would absolutely divert water. It would just celebrate it on the way down. Maintained in good repair. Check. It would be brand new. In keeping with the community aesthetic. This was the tricky one. But what was the aesthetic? Beige? Aggressive blandness? My machine wasn't beige. It was transparent. It was art. It was postmodern suburban spite. That's an aesthetic. I'd argue it was a sculptural water feature. The bylaws said nothing about downspouts not being transparent. It said nothing about them not containing 300 steel pegs. It said nothing about them not also being a delivery system for 1,000 marbles. It was a loophole you could drive a parade float through. I leaned back, a smile spreading across my face for the first time in days. A slow, deeply unhinged smile. "General," I said, and the dog trotted over, sensing a change in the weather. "We're going to need a bigger budget." I went online to a bulk toy supplier and ordered a 50-pound box of assorted boulder marbles. I held the laminated Notice of Acoustic Nuisance in one hand. "You wanted me to rectify it, Brenda," I whispered to the empty room. "Oh, you're going to get so much rectification." I am a man of many talents. I can kern fonts. I can make a logo pop. I can almost cook a decent omelet. What I cannot do is build a 20-foot-tall, waterproof, structurally sound acrylic Plinko machine. This was not a DIY job. This required professionals. Professionals who were, like me, slightly unhinged. My first call was a hilarious, spectacular failure. I called Chad's Custom Exteriors. Their slogan was, "If it's on your house, it's on our A-game." They had 4.9 stars on the local review site. "Chad's Custom," a chipper voice answered. "Hi, I'd like to get a quote on a custom downspout installation," I said. "You bet," said the voice, who I was sure was named Chad. "We've got the best. We offer copper, seamless aluminum, and vinyl in 14 designer colors. What's your pleasure?" "Great," I said, taking a breath. "I'm looking for something a little more bespoke. I need a 2-foot diameter clear acrylic tube running 20 feet from my gutter to the ground. I need it to have 300 internally mounted, staggered stainless steel dowels, and it needs to be capped with a solar-powered, moisture-activated marble release hopper." There was a long, dead silence on the other end of the line. I could hear him breathing. "Sir," Chad said, his voice no longer chipper. "Is this a prank call? Did Kevin from Gutter Done put you up to this? Because if he did, you can tell him his logo is a joke." "No, Kevin didn't put me up to this. I'm an artist. It's a kinetic sculpture. That's also a gutter." Marble gutter." "Yes. Sir, we install gutters. Like, for rain. Do you need me to call someone? Are you okay?" "You don't get my vision, Chad," I said, and hung up. Clearly, I needed a different class of artisan. I went to the second-to-last page of Google search results. And there I found it. S&R Custom Fabrications. Their website looked like it was made in 1998 by a high schooler who had just discovered the flaming text GIF. Their motto was, "If you can dream it, we can probably build it. No refunds." This was my team. I called. A gruff voice answered. "S&R, what do you want?" I gave him the same speech. 20-foot acrylic Plinko machine. For marbles. Also for water. There was a pause. But this was a different kind of pause. It wasn't confusion. It was interest. "Where you at?" the voice grunted. The next day, a beat-up Ford F-250 that looked like it had survived a small war pulled into my driveway. 2 men got out. The first was Sal. Sal was built like a refrigerator. He had a graying ponytail, hands the size of baseball mitts, and a t-shirt that said, "I can't, I'm welding." He looked like he'd been building things since before I was born. The second was Ricky. Ricky was about my age, skinny as a rail, with a manic energy about him. He had safety goggles tan lines, jittered like he'd just shotgunned 6 Red Bulls, and wore a t-shirt that said, "Measure once, cuss twice." They stood in my side yard, staring up at the boring aluminum gutter. General Tso ran out, sniffed Sal, and immediately rolled over for a belly rub. "Good dog," Sal grunted. "Okay, kid, let's see it." I unrolled my sketch. I had printed it out on a large format plotter at my office. It was detailed. It had measurements. Sal took the print, holding it with one massive, grease-stained hand. He looked at it. He looked at Brenda's house next door, which was separated by a fence. He looked at me. "You hate your neighbor," he said. It wasn't a question. "I appreciate my neighbor's constructive feedback on my home's acoustic profile," I replied. Ricky, who had been silently vibrating, let out a sound like a deflating balloon. "A Plinko machine," he whispered, his eyes wide. "A gutter Plinko machine. For marbles. This is the dumbest, most beautiful, most glorious waste of money I have ever seen in my 20 years in this business," Sal said. His face was deadpan, but I thought I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. "So you'll do it?" I asked, my voice full of hope. Ricky cackled. "Do it! We're gonna over-engineer it. 2-foot diameter? No. You want 18-inch, it's a standard acrylic bore, saves you money. We'll use 1/2-inch thick UV-resistant tubing. It won't yellow. 3 8-inch stainless dowels. We'll set them in a chaotic, non-repeating pattern to maximize the plink to plonk ratio. We'll have to build a custom flange to mate it with your existing gutter." He was rambling, designing it in his head. He was a beautiful, beautiful maniac. "And," Ricky said, his eyes gleaming, "we're adding LEDs." "LEDs? Oh yeah, waterproof RGB strips, battery-powered with a solar charger, so the HOA can't claim it's a utility violation. You can have them strobe, or fade, or rainbow chaos mode." "I like rainbow chaos mode," I said. "And bells," Sal added, speaking for the first time in a minute. "At the bottom, forget the splash block." "Bells?" "No, not bells," Ricky corrected him, offended. "We're using chimes, tuned chimes, C, E, and G, a C major chord. It'll play a happy little welcome chord every time a marble finishes its journey." It's more than I ever dreamed," I said, feeling a tear well up in my eye. "It's gonna cost you," Sal grunted, pulling out a notepad. "It's gonna cost you the weird job tax, which is 20%, plus the don't tell, our wives' fee, and the this is gonna piss off an HOA surcharge." "I don't care," I said, pulling out my wallet. "Shut up and take my money." Sal finally smiled. It was a terrifying, wonderful sight. "I like you, kid. You're an idiot. But I like you." "We'll need a 50% deposit. In cash," he said. "Done." "And," Ricky added, "we're gonna need access to your roof for the hopper." "Whatever you need. Just make it loud." "Oh," Ricky said, his smile all teeth. "It won't be loud. It'll be a performance." They got back in their truck. As they pulled away, I heard Sal yell at Ricky, "And we're gonna laser etch S&R fabrications on the inside. It's a showpiece." I had found my artists. The following Tuesday, the truck from S&R Fabrications returned. This time it was towing a trailer with what looked like a missile. It was the 20-foot, 18-inch diameter acrylic tube, pre-fitted with its 300 gleaming steel dowels. The build was not a subtle affair. Sal and Ricky were not quiet men. They set up scaffolding. They had a generator. They blasted classic rock, specifically a lot of AC/DC. The side of my house was, for 3 full days, a scene of joyous, industrial chaos. The sounds of drilling, the whine of a router, the thwack of a rivet gun. And floating above it all, Sal and Ricky's creative process, which mostly consisted of them yelling at each other. "The flange is off by a millimeter. It's supposed to be. It's for the gasket. You're a gasket." The neighborhood was, to put it mildly, curious. My neighbors, Bob and Mary, came out. They just stared. "Hey, Dave," Bob said, nodding. "New sewer pipe?" "It's a water flow visualization system," I said, with a perfectly straight face. "It's educational. For science." "Huh," Bob said. "Looks loud." "That's the idea," I said. Bob, who had once been documented by Brenda because his Christmas lights were asynchronous, gave me a slow, knowing smile and a thumbs up. But the real show, the main event, was Brenda. She was a constant presence, a ghost at the window. Her curtains were twitching so hard I thought they might spontaneously combust. She was livid. She was documenting everything, her clipboard practically smoking. On day 2, when they were hoisting the main tube into place, she couldn't take it anymore. She stormed out her front door, marched across her lawn, and stood on my driveway, hands on her hips. "What?" she shrieked over the sound of thunderstruck. "Is going on here?" Sal cut the generator. The sudden silence was deafening. Ricky poked his head over the scaffolding. "We're building a thing, lady." "That is not a regulation downspout," she yelled, pointing her trembling pen at the gleaming acrylic monster. It's reflective. It's obscene." "It's a custom drainage solution, Brenda," I said, walking over with a tray of lemonades for the crew. "Want one?" "This is a mockery," she spat. "A mockery? What is in it? Are those spikes?" "Those are acoustic dampeners, ma'am," Ricky called down, his face a perfect mask of innocence. They break up the water flow to make it quieter." Sal choked on his lemonade. "It's true," I added. "It's a brand new German design, the Sturmwasser 9000. It's for aeration. Aerates the water as it falls. The lawn loves it." "Aeration," she repeated, her face turning a fascinating shade of plum. "It looks like a hamster tube. A giant hamster tube for vermin." "It's industrial chic, lady," Ricky yelled. "It's art. Look it up." "I am documenting everything," she shrieked. "Every screw, every bolt. The board will hear of this. This is not in keeping with the community aesthetic." "I'd argue it's a sculptural water feature, Brenda," I said, sipping my own lemonade. "And as you can see, Sal and Ricky are maintaining it in excellent repair." Sal gave her a 2-fingered wave with a greasy hand. She just made a sound. A high-pitched, strangled noise of pure, undiluted rage. She turned on her sensible heel and stormed back to her house, the door slamming hard enough to rattle her own windows. "She seems nice," Sal grunted. "She's the muse," I said. They got back to work. On day 3, they were on the roof, installing the hopper. It was a masterpiece of engineering. A sleek, black box with a solar panel on top. Ricky had even programmed the release mechanism. "Okay," he explained to me, his eyes wide with excitement. It's not just a dump mechanism. That's crude. I've got it on a staggered, randomized timer. It'll release 1 to 5 marbles every 10 to 30 seconds, only after the moisture sensor has been active for 90 seconds. This way, it builds anticipation. "Ricky," I said, "you're a poet." By 5:00 p.m. on day 3, it was done. They packed up their tools. The classic rock was silenced. The generator was off. We stood in the side yard, the 3 of us, just admiring it. It was magnificent. It was a 20-foot tall, 18-inch wide, crystal-clear monument to pettiness. The 300 steel pegs glittered in the late afternoon sun. The tuned chimes at the bottom, C, E, G, gleamed. The hidden LED strips were invisible, waiting for their moment. I breathed. "It's perfect." "It's a monster," Sal said, clapping me on the back so hard I almost spat out a lung. "A beautiful, stupid monster." "We loaded the hopper," Ricky said, handing me a small, waterproof remote. "This controls the LEDs, fade, strobe, blink, and my personal favorite, rainbow chaos." "I'll treasure it," I said. "Call us when it rains," Sal said, getting in the truck. "No, scratch that. Text us. I want to see the video." "You'll be the first to know." They drove away. I was alone with my creation. I looked over at Brenda's house. Her blinds were drawn. The hydrangeas on her side of the fence looked stressed. I went inside, grabbed a beer, and sat by my office window. And I waited. The problem with building a rain-powered spite machine is that you are, in fact, reliant on the rain. And the forecast? Sunny. Sunny for the next 48 hours. Not a cloud. Not a hint of moisture. I couldn't wait. I was like a kid on December 23rd. I had this glorious new toy, and the universe was denying me. I poked it. I tapped on the acrylic. It was solid. It was silent. It was taunting me. By 3:00 p.m. the next day, I couldn't take it anymore. If nature wouldn't provide the precipitation, I would. I went to the garage. I got my garden hose. I went to the 50-pound box of marbles, my acoustic aggregators, and scooped a few dozen into a plastic bucket. This was objectively a terrible idea. It was 3:00 p.m. on a Tuesday. It was dead quiet. My test would not be subtle. "For science," I muttered to General So, who just wagged his tail, sensing my manic energy. I dragged the hose to the side of the house, climbed a ladder up to the roof, and positioned myself over the hopper. My heart was pounding. This was it. The moment of truth. For spite. For Sal and Ricky. For every person ever told their recycling bin was confusing. I turned on the hose. First, just the water. It gurgled in the gutter and then spilled into the acrylic tube. It was, actually, louder than the old gutter. The water was splashing and echoing off the 300 pegs, a rushing, roaring sound. Whoosh, splash, shh. It was a promising start. Then I grabbed the bucket. "Okay," I whispered. "Let's rectify." I poured in the marbles. It was glorious. It was not a drip. It was not a plink. It was a symphony. It was a chaotic, clattering, beautiful cacophony. Plink, clack, clack, plunk, clack, plink. The marbles, dozens of them, were bouncing and racing down the 20-foot maze, striking the steel dowels with sharp, musical pings. And as they hit the bottom, The chimes sang out. Ding-dong chime. A perfect C major chord of victory. It was louder. It was so much louder than I could have ever, in my wildest dreams, imagined. I was laughing, cackling like a madman, on my own roof, spraying a hose into a giant marble machine. The reaction was immediate. It took exactly 3.4 seconds. Brenda's front door didn't open. It exploded outward. She didn't walk out. She burst onto her lawn like she'd been shot out of a cannon. She wasn't holding her clipboard. This was too big for the clipboard. Her face was beet red. Her hands were balled into fists. "What?" she screeched, her voice cracking. "What is that noise?" I peeked my head over the edge of the roof. I gave her my most innocent, neighborly smile. "Hi, Brenda," I yelled over the glorious din. "Just flushing the new gutter. Gotta check for leaks." "Leaks?" she screamed. "It's not raining. It's clanging." "I know, right?" I yelled back joyfully. "It's the acoustic scrubbers for the moss. Gotta get the moss out." "It's 3 days old," she shrieked, her voice achieving a pitch I didn't think humans were capable of. "It doesn't have moss." "Preemptive," I shouted. "I'm a preemptive guy, just doing some routine maintenance. Didn't want to disturb you." "Those are balls," she screamed, pointing a trembling finger. "I can see them. They're marbles." "Drainage aggregators, Brenda," I corrected her. "It's a German thing. I'm shutting it down now. Test is complete. Seems to be working great." I turned off the hose. The marbles finished their chaotic journey. The last few plink-plonked their way down and hit the chimes. Ding-dong. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by Brenda's hyperventilating. She just stood there on her lawn, vibrating. She looked up at me. I looked down at her. "You," she whispered, her voice trembling with a rage so pure it was almost holy. "You will rue this day, David." She actually said it. Rue, like a cartoon supervillain, like she was about to tie me to a set of railroad tracks. She stormed back inside. Her door slammed. The entire rue the day incident had lasted maybe 90 seconds. I climbed down the ladder, my knees weak from laughter. "Rue the day," I said to General So. "Who says that?" The only thing I rued was that I hadn't bought more marbles. I couldn't wait for the rain. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, the sky turned a sick, greenish gray. The local news weatherman, a guy named Chipper Tom, was practically vibrating with excitement. "It's a major weather event, folks," he chirped. "This low-pressure system is colliding with well, you don't care about that. What you care about is that we are looking at potential for heavy downpours, high winds, and, yes, hail." My heart leaped. Hail. That wasn't even in my calculations. The air on my patio was thick, still, and electric. It was the calm before. I felt like a general preparing for a siege. This was it, the main event, the debut performance of the Sturmwasser 9000. I went into preparation mode. First, I climbed up and checked the hopper. The solar battery was at 100%, the marble release mechanism was primed. I topped off the reservoir. It was loaded with over 1,000 acoustic aggregators. Second, I got the remote for the LEDs. I put new batteries in it, just in case. I placed it on the small table on my covered back porch. Third, I went to the kitchen. I grabbed a 6-pack of my favorite IPA, a family-sized bag of Tostitos, hint of lime, of course, and a jar of salsa. I put it all on the porch table. I grabbed my most comfortable lawn chair. "This is it, General," I said to my dog, who had curled up at my feet, sensing the change in the atmosphere. "Showtime." I sat. I cracked a beer. I opened the chips. And I waited. At 7:00 p.m., the first drop hit. It was plip, just one. It landed on the roof, rolled into the gutter, and went down the tube. It missed all the pegs. It just to the bottom. Then another. Plip, plip. A light drizzle started. This sound was actually nice. The water trickled down, striking a peg here and there. Tink, plink, tink. It was a gentle, random wind chime sort of sound. I almost felt bad. If this was all it did, Brenda would have no... And then the heavens opened. It wasn't rain. It was a deluge. It was like God had overturned a cosmic swimming pool directly over Hydrangea Hills. The sound on the roof was a deafening roar. Whomp! Shh! I watched the gutter. The water was gushing into the hopper. I waited 30 seconds, 60 seconds. At 90 seconds, just as Ricky had programmed, the moisture sensor must have tripped. I heard a faint whir from the roof. And then it began. The hopper whirred to life, dumping its first payload. 5 marbles. Clack, plink, plunk, bid-d-d-d-ding, chime. It was glorious. It was so loud. The sound cut through the roar of the rain itself. 10 seconds later. Whir, another payload. Plink, plink, clack, clack, plunk, ding-dong. It was working. It was working. The storm intensified. The rain was coming down in sheets. And the hopper, bless its little solar-powered heart, picked up the pace. It was releasing marbles every 10 seconds, a chaotic, non-stop barrage. It was no longer a song. It was a symphony. It was a 20-foot-tall, one-man band marble opera. Clack, 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 plonk, plink, ding-dong, chime, plonk. I was laughing. I was howling. I was eating Tostitos and toasting my own genius. "It's alive!" I yelled. "It's alive!" And then I remembered the remote. I grabbed it. I looked at the button. The one Ricky had labeled with a skull and crossbones sticker. "Rainbow Chaos." I pressed it. The side of my house exploded in light. The waterproof RGB strips flashed to life, strobing in time with the clacks and plunks. Red, blue, green, purple. The entire 20-foot tube was a flashing, strobing, thundering beacon of pure, unadulterated spite. It looked like a 1970s disco was having a seizure on my wall. It was the most beautiful, tacky, wonderful thing I had ever seen. It was at that moment that Brenda's house lights snapped on. All of them. I saw her shade fly up in her bedroom window, a silhouette, just staring. I couldn't help myself. I stood up, walked to the edge of my porch, and lifted my beer in a toast. I just gave her a little wave. I saw her silhouette flail. And then, even over the sound of the storm and the Plinko symphony, I heard it. A high-pitched, sustained wail. It was the sound of a woman who had finally, truly been rectified. I sat back down, grinning from ear to ear. I was about to take another chip when I heard her. Her voice, faint but full of panic. She was on the phone. Her window was open. "Yes, 911!" she was screaming. "I'd like to report an assault, an acoustic assault." I froze, my chip halfway to my mouth. "My neighbor, he's built a machine. It's attacking me with noise and lights. It's a death marble machine." I nearly choked on my beer. She called 911. She called 911. On a gutter. The absolute, magnificent legend. This was the main event. This was the boss battle. I finished my beer, put the bag of chips down, and tidied my shirt. I was about to have visitors. 10 minutes later, the grand finale began. A new set of lights joined the rainbow chaos strobing on my house. Red and blue lights. A squad car rolled slowly down our quiet suburban street, its wipers on full blast. The car pulled up, parking directly between my house and Brenda's. The flashing lights, the pouring rain, the clack-plonk-ding of the Plinko gutter. It was the most surreal, psychedelic suburban nightmare I'd ever witnessed. 2 officers got out, rain slickers on, hats pulled low. I named them instantly. The first one out was the veteran. He was older, with a gray mustache, and a look on his face that said he was 2 years from retirement and had seen everything stupid this city had to offer. This was Officer Miller. The second one was the rookie. Young, fresh-faced, and he was desperately trying to look serious. This was Officer Blevins. They stood in the street for a solid 10 seconds, just looking. They looked at Brenda's house, which was lit up like a Christmas tree. They looked at my house, which was lit up like a broken Christmas tree on acid. They looked up at the thundering, clattering, flashing 20-foot monster on my wall. Officer Miller sighed. It was a sigh that carried the weight of 30 years of domestic disputes and cats stuck in trees. "Blevins," he said, his voice just audible over the din. "What? What am I looking at?" Officer Blevins, to his credit, just shook his head. I think it's art, sir? Maybe? Like a weather thing?" Before they could even take a step, Brenda's front door flew open. She ran out into the pouring rain, wearing a pink bathrobe and slippers. She was holding her original laminated complaint over her head, as if to protect it from the downpour. "Officer!" she shrieked, running into her front yard. "Thank God! Arrest this maniac!" I figured this was my cue. I walked out from my covered porch, hands in my pockets, projecting an aura of pure, unadulterated, "What's all this, then?" "Evening, officers," I said, giving a polite nod. "Rough night for it." Officer Miller turned his gaze to me. It was a look of profound, soul-deep weariness. "Sir, are you David?" "Dave, yes, sir." "Your neighbor, ma'am?" He motioned to Brenda, who was now vibrating in a puddle. "Says you've built a death marble machine and are acoustically assaulting her." I looked at the gutter. I looked back at the cop. I put on my best "I'm just as confused as you are" face. "The what?" I said. "Oh, that? That's just my new gutter, custom built." Gutter," Miller said flatly. "Yep, it's German," I said, leaning into my lie. "It's the Sturmwasser 9000. It's an acoustic, self-cleaning system. The marbles, they scrub the interior." "Marbles," Miller repeated. Officer Blevins, who was standing behind Miller, made a strange coughing sound. He had to turn away. His shoulders were shaking. He was laughing. "He's lying!" Brenda screamed, her hair plastered to her face. "It's a Plinko machine! I heard him tell the contractors it's for spite! Because I complained his old gutter was loud!" Officer Miller looked at me. I just gave him a tiny, innocent shrug. "She did complain. Said the drip was too loud. So I rectified it. This new system, it diffuses the sound. You know, with more sound. It's science." "Acoustic scrubbers," Blevins sputtered from the darkness, before pretending to cough again. "Sir," Miller said, pinching the bridge of his nose. And the lights? Oh, I said, as if just remembering. That's a safety feature. So, you know, people can see the gutter in the dark. Don't want anyone walking into it. It's 20 feet in the air, Brenda shrieked. Who's going to walk into it? A giant? Safety first, Brenda, I said gravely. Officer Miller held up a hand. Ma'am, he said, turning to Brenda. Is this device entirely on his property? Well, yes, but is it spraying water or marbles onto your property? No, it's invading it, with sound and strobe lights. Ma'am, Miller said, checking his watch. It is 7:38 p.m. The city noise ordinance doesn't kick in until 11 p.m. But it's a nuisance. Ma'am, it's rain. We can't write a ticket for rain. I'd love to turn it off, officer, I added helpfully. But it's gravity-powered. It's a whole physics thing. I'm afraid you'd have to arrest... I looked up at the sky. God? And the paperwork on that would be a nightmare. This was too much for Blevins. He was now audibly giggling behind the squad car. Miller shot him a death glare. Ma'am, he said, turning back to Brenda. It is weird. It is tacky as all hell. And it's very bright. But it is not, strictly speaking, illegal. This is a civil matter, he yelled over a particularly loud clack-plunk-ding. You have to take it up with your homeowners association. I, Brenda sputtered. This is an outrage. I pay your salary. Have a good night, ma'am, Miller said. Sir, try to keep your gutter in check. Will do, officer. Thanks for stopping by. Miller and Blevins got back in their car. As they pulled away, the red and blue lights vanished, leaving only the rainbow chaos strobing in the night. I saw them get to the end of the street, and as they turned the corner, the car's interior light came on. Officer Blevins had finally lost it. He was bent over, howling with laughter in the passenger seat. Brenda just stood in the rain, her laminated notice hanging limply at her side. She was defeated. I went back to my porch, sat down, and picked up a tostito. Plink, clack, plunk, ding! It was the sweetest sound in the world. The storm passed around midnight. The Sturmwasser 9000 finished its performance with a few final, stray plink dongs and fell silent. The LEDs clicked off. Peace returned to Hydrangea Hills. A new, glorious peace. I thought I'd be a pariah. I thought I'd be the neighborhood weirdo, the marble guy. I was wrong. The next morning I was getting my mail when my other neighbor, Bob, of the asynchronous Christmas lights, came jogging over. Dave, he said, a huge grin on his face. Dave, I gotta shake your hand. He grabbed my hand and pumped it. My wife, Mary, and I, we made popcorn. We sat in our living room and watched the whole thing. The lights, the cops. It was the best show we've seen all year. Oh, sorry if it was too loud. Too loud? Bob laughed. Are you kidding? That woman, he said, gesturing at Brenda's darkened house, reported my chimney last winter. Said the smoke smelled too smoky. She reported my wind chimes for unlicensed musical performance. You didn't just rectify your gutter, man. You rectified the whole neighborhood. You are a god. The story went viral, at least on the Hydrangea Hills Neighborhood Facebook group. Someone posted a video, a blurry, shaky video taken from across the street of the cops and the rainbow chaos gutter and Brenda screaming in her bathrobe. The comments were art. Sarah P. OMG, is that marbles? I thought we were being invaded. Mike L. That's Dave's house. Brenda finally pushed him too far. LOL. Bob G., my new best friend. It's a sculptural water feature. It's art. Brenda W., the clipboard herself. This is a disgrace. It is a clear violation, and I am appalled at this behavior. I am calling an emergency HOA meeting. She did. She called an emergency meeting. It was held the following Thursday in the community center, a beige room that smelled like old coffee and defeat. I went, of course, and I didn't come alone. I brought Sal and Ricky. Brenda was at the front with a projector. She presented a 40-page dossier of her grievances, complete with blurry photos, grainy audio recordings, and her laminated notice, now entered into evidence. And this, she concluded, her voice trembling, is an affront to our community, our standards, and our property values. The board, a panel of 3 equally beige individuals, looked tired. Mr. David, the head of the board said, do you have anything to say about this contraption? I stood up. I do not, but my engineers do. Sal and Ricky, who I had paid $200 and a case of beer to attend, stood up. Sal was in his I can't, I'm welding shirt. Ricky was vibrating. Sal cleared his throat. Ma'am, board members, what my client, Mr. Dave, has installed is a custom-fabricated, artisan-crafted, high-capacity water flow system. It is 100% to code. It is built from materials that exceed all community standards for UV resistance and durability. It is, as my colleague Mr. Bob said, art. Ricky chimed in. The acoustic aggregators are, in fact, a maintenance system. The bylaws state all drainage must be maintained in good repair. My client is just proactive. It's not our fault that good maintenance sings. The board was stumped. It was weird. It was ugly as sin. It was loud. But was it illegal? I had my copy of the bylaws. Section 9C, gentlemen. Functional and maintained. It is both. I have rectified the drip she complained about. The new sound is different, but the bylaws do not specify which sound a gutter must make. The motion to fine me was tabled. The motion to force me to remove it failed. Brenda was broken. The Plinko gutter of Hydrangea Hills became a local landmark. Teenagers started taking selfies with it. Someone left a bag of Aggie marbles on my porch as an anonymous donation. A month later, it happened. The for sale sign. It went up on Brenda's lawn. It was a quiet, overcast afternoon. I was on my porch, reading. A light drizzle started. The gutter began its song. Not the chaotic thunderstorm opera, but a gentle, melodic plink. Plunk. Clack. Ding. It was meditative. It was my focus sound. I saw Brenda loading a final box of hydrangeas into her car. She looked over. Our eyes met across the 2 perfect beige-approved lawns. I didn't gloat. I didn't grin. I just gave her a polite, neighborly nod and a little wave. She didn't wave back. She just stared, her face a mask. She got in her car, backed out of her driveway, perfectly, not a single inch impeding the sidewalk, and drove away. I never saw her again. The house sold in a week, to a family with 3 kids. The first time it rained, I heard them in the yard, laughing and cheering as the marbles raced. I sat back, sipping my coffee. General So snored at my feet. The gutter sang its song. It was the sound of gravity. It was the sound of physics. It was the sound of rectification.